So now we move on to the TUF. You can see the Astros on the side there. This cooler, I just want to quickly talk about it real quick. From my experience using this card and the Astral, I've had the Astral for quite some time now. This I got more recent. Cooling performance in games, I use, currently I'm using a setup where I'm using a Tri-X Luca, right? So it's a glass case, you know, aquarium glass essentially. When I've been playing Assassin's Creed on my free time at AC Shadows, this card overclocked to the same speed as that one. They both hit about 3100 before I get crashy. So 3100 is game stable, not benchmark stable. Okay, benchmark stable tends to be a little higher. I would say on this GPU, I hit like 69 in my scenario, and this one is probably like 64. Okay, so it's about a 5-degree difference. It's not huge, but obviously the cooler is not going to be as that, right? So let's get started. So this is going to be hopefully more of a traditional removal. I'm going to start with this front here. I can almost guarantee you that these are going to be touching, so I'm going to remove that. Once again, I've never taken one of these apart either, so I'm going to play it by ear. But I'm pretty familiar with the ASUS cards. All right, so we'll start along the corners, moving the backplate. All right, so one more here. And I think they used a thermal paste pad there, and that's why it's kind of uniform. So let's see here. Take these screws out. For those of you wondering, once again, the gaming and it's just like there's a non-OC version of this, which you're probably not going to see anytime soon. But there's a gaming variant of this, which this is, and there's an OC variant. The price point is $200 different at this point. There was a launch one that was $2,000 of this, which I don't think anybody got because it probably didn't even exist. I was told it existed on launch day, but yeah, sure. Okay, but anyway, the $200 price point is negligible given the whole pricing scheme these days. But they are the same card. Okay, even if you buy the OC variant, it's the same card. Literally the same card. This is not going to be any more bin than this. Same thing, right? You're playing the silicone lottery. Don't believe that because you're spending more money, you're going to get something that overclocks better. That may be true for some things, like if you bought like a really cheap blower variant, which eventually will come out. Obviously, those while they have the same silicone lottery, they may not boost as high because the temperature curve is going to affect the boost clocks, right? So because the FE is a dual slot. NVIDIA has raised the base before clocks start dropping. So it used to be, I think, 55, right? So on 55 degrees, you would start losing clocks. Now I think that's more like 65 now. And then the really big one comes a little bit into the 70s, I think. I don't remember off the top of my head, but that's what I've noticed. But okay, so that said, I should probably pay attention. Okay, so let me put this here. It should start coming apart soon. Okay, so the back plate is coming loose already. Alright, so okay, the cooler's coming off. Am I missing? Sorry guys, if you can't see this closely, I'm trying to see this as well. And I'm a little more distant. Okay, so I think the shroud is actually coming off. Yeah, I think the shroud is coming off. But it feels like it's attached by one more thing. Okay, yep. Same as on the Astral. This screw as well. Okay. Whew, almost lost that. Alright, so this shroud should be coming off now. I think the fan cable is too short, so we're going to have to remove the fan cable on this one first. So we'll just take here. Once again, do not pull too hard. Wiggle slowly, slowly, slowly. Okay? And check your clearances, and here's the shroud. Now this is 100% the same fans as the 40 series, I believe, because that looks really familiar. I'm actually curious to see if the 40 series shroud will fit. It might be a little bit shorter. But anyway, just let me clear some junk here, move this to the side. You know what? While I have this here, we can actually take a look. Let's just take a look, since I don't think most people have both of these cards. Oh, and those who do are probably not going to take it apart for you. So let's take a look real quick here. You'll notice that they appear to be the same fan, right? They appear to be the same fan. And yeah, let's see. There's the bracket. 330. Okay, it's different. But yeah, same fan. All right. But this is much heavier than this. It's much thinner. You can just tell. Some parts of this is plastic. Yeah, this is, wow. You know, I didn't even think about it till now, but this is plastic, guys. Yeah, it's plastic. This part seems to be plastic too. Wow, that's a downgrade. Pretty surprising that this is plastic. I guess I didn't think about it earlier because I was thinking, why did it feel kind of light? But yeah, so this used to be aluminum on last generation. Now it's plastic. That's a bit of a disappointment, but I guess maybe it's for these additional designs. They needed two-piece plastic instead of a single piece of aluminum like they used to have, where this was a solid one-piece last generation. Now it is a two-piece split, and it's also, yeah, I'm not a big fan. I think that they could have kept this as a one-piece. I mean, this is a separate piece, and then made this part metal, and then just have you screw this on. So this is a little bit disappointing, but you know, I think at these price points this shouldn't be plastic. But then again, Zotac, MSI, they're all plastic. Even the Supreme, it's two-part plastic, one-piece metal. So it is what it is. All right. So it's not that they're not doing anything different than another manufacturer would. It's just I tend to have higher expectations for ASUS. So it is what it is. So let's see why I can't get this backplate off. All right, so let's try to get the... that's feels like it's attached somewhere. So let's see if we can get the backplate off. I can hear the pads, and that's probably what's keeping it on. The backplate is metal, guys, so there's that at least. But why does it feels so stuck? It feels a little bit stuck on this one side. Yeah, you can see the screw here. There's a screw holding the backplate on. There's one screw right here. So that's why the backplate's not coming off. But the cooler does not look like anything's holding it on and should come off. Maybe with a little bit of encouragement. So as I expected, it was just the pads. That was kind of forcing it into place there. But you can see here, there's individually cut memory pads because that's probably the same process as for the Astral. But you can see that they're not sticking out exactly where the pads are. So that you can see that that's an attention to detail that's a little bit different. But you know, before I transfer the pads over, let's just take a look at the heat sinks. All right. So let's just do some comparison on the heat sinks. As you can see, this is obviously much more bulky. All right, we'll put it on its side. I think this is actually probably similar to last generation. You can see that, right? Let me see that in the camera here. See, that's quite a difference there. You can also see the heat pipe difference, right? So, show you guys. You can think I dropped the pad. Yeah, I dropped the pad. I'm going to find it. But you can see here, right? So there is some differences here that can be appreciated visually. So with that said, I'm going to transfer the pads. I'm going to take the back plate off. As you can see, I was saying there's actually two more screws, one down here and one over here that's keeping that back plate on. and then we'll take a look at the PCBs. All right, my apologies. There's more than two. There's one here, one over here, and then the third one's over here. So a slight change from the previous generations, but this is similar to, I think, maybe the 3000 series or 2000. All right, so that's all the screws for the TUF, and we should have the backplate come right off. Once again, you'll see that there's padding, right? It's not as heavily padded as the Astral, but that's to be expected, right? Yeah, you get what you pay for. But once again, like I said, I'm not a fan of the fact that this is plastic. I find that quite disappointing. And I'm surprised I didn't think about it earlier. So here we go. So you can see that side by side, these PCBs. Let me move the camera up a little bit. So in terms of the PCB themselves, right, there's not much. Well, you get the PWM fan headers here, but you can see that in terms of power delivery, you are getting very much the same thing, right? So it really just comes down to the cooler itself, and I don't know who hooks up fans to their graphics cards these days, and the monitoring for this. Okay, let's look at the back. I don't expect any real differences here. Oh, there are some. Okay, so there's obviously a little more beefed up on the back over here. So there are some subtle differences. Unlike last generation where the differences were so small on the PCBs that you could use the same blocks, you cannot this time. So now we're going to start the process with the Astro first. Astro first because this Astro block has never been tested. So we're going to check for contact. First, I'm going to remove the paste here. We'll clean that up, and then we'll start mounting this, and we'll check for contact. Since I'm being the guinea pig, essentially, what I'm going to be looking for is making sure that things are not supposed to be touching are not touching. For example, bare metal on any component here. Okay, so I'm going to quickly just clean that up, and then we'll get started. So I cleaned up the die. I'm just going to use Noctua thermal paste. Some of you, I know, are big fans of Thermal Grizzly. Personally, from all my use cases in the past, I never found it to be much better. And it's a little bit more messy to me, and I just find this stuff more consistent because I use it on everything. So that's why I'm using this. All right, so let me quickly first remove the pads here. And then hopefully we won't run into any installation issues. I just do this fat blop, and then I'm going to remove it anyway, just to check contact, so it doesn't really matter to me. But let's see here if everything lines up. This is the first time the block they designed is meeting an Astral, okay? Because they're going off a CAD diagram, so they're not going to be able to tell without physically testing it. I mean, a lot of block manufacturers like to do kind of visual inspection, but obviously that's not going to compare to actually having it mounted. So at this point, I'm just checking before I tighten anything down to make sure nothing's touching. All right, so I can see right now that the pads are not touching the actual components. The pads are not touching. Let me just press this down some more. I don't know if you guys can see. It's probably hard to see on the camera, but you can see that the pads are not touching. Like right here, it's not touching. You need a thicker pad, and that needs to be more machined down. I mean, it needs to be adjusted. See, the screws are kind of, yeah, it seems like it's a bit raised more than it needs to be. But let's screw it on and see. So at most, it's not going to touch, and it's not going to over cramp down. I have it on the edge of the table because I IO plate here, so I'm just going to tighten it down real quick, and then we'll take a look here. But so far, that's not a good sign. All right, I'm not going to peel these off first because I'm just going to do this real quick. All right, guys. So I've put on, it uses a stock retention bracket. All right. So I'm putting on these screws not too tight because I'm checking for flex of the PCB as I put them on. But as I put the backplate on and I was put the retention bracket on, I can see the pads that start touching where they're supposed to be. So, but I just want to make sure that it's not bending the card to do so. Right. So that's one reason why I keep checking it for every screw that I put in. But so far it's looking pretty good. But it does feel like the backplate is bowing a little bit due to the retention bracket. It does look like it's bowing a little bit. Very, very slightly. So yeah, this is definitely bowing a little bit. So that probably needs some adjustment. I was just told that they did try the TUF. So hopefully the TUF doesn't have this issue. But seeing that it uses the same retention bracket, and seeing the backplate, I don't see how the TUF doesn't have this problem. But obviously, like I said, this is a prototype and, we're going to find out. But it looks like it's touching. I'm not going to put it all back because I forgot. I didn't peel the pads and I want to check contact. So I think I have enough screws in here just to see. So we're going to look at the top again from my side. So it looks good here. It looks good from the top. Even if for guys, if you buy a water block and you're installing a water block, always do this check. Because even though like I said before, some of the blocks are just visually inspected to fit, it doesn't necessarily mean that you may not run into issues. I've had it over the years where I've had blocks that are visually inspected to fit, and then once I get the block and I start putting it on, I start noticing problems. And this is definitely, so you want to check at the bottom. You want to make sure that the PCB is not bowing by any chance, right? But you can see the back plate is bowing a little bit because of the retention bracket. Just want to check all your corners here. Once again, this is disappointing in that any heavy block, the bracket should somehow attach to the block. This will support it from sagging. Like you can see that if I hang it from this, it's going to sag. So that's some feedback I'm going to give. They had a bridge on the 2000 series that fixed that, but it seems like they forgot for the 3000 series, I think. I think they forgot that for this again, like they did on the 40. So I'm going to make that as a feedback. So let's just take apart. Let's just take all the screws out now again. And then we'll just see how good that contact is. We'll take a look at the pads. Again, do not over tighten these screws on the back, especially the first go around, because you want to double check to make sure everything's fitting. Okay. All right, so let's just take these all out. So for the back plate, I believe these are going to be anodized black. If there's any colors you guys... I was suggesting that for the cover and the back that they offer white, like a kind of a white color. Like I said, that could be satin or gloss. I think a satin matte is better than a gloss because I think glossy stuff tends to look cheap unless it's done right. I don't think there's anything glossy in a computer that ever didn't look cheap. So... that's why I would prefer non-gloss, but put in the comments what you would like to see. A lot of your feedback, Bitspower, like I said, is trying to change up a lot of things. So a lot of your feedback will actually come into fruition more than you expect. You can see that this thing has bowed a little bit, right? So that's from the bracket itself. And one more screw dropped out. And let's take a look. So everything looks good here. Sorry guys, the I/O bracket alone is going to make me have to elevate this on the side of the table. And change my screwdriver. And let's take a look at the GPU. So we'll take a look at the core. We'll look at the contact on that. And if everything's all good, we will then proceed to test this after we block the TUF. All right. So let's hope this looks good. So contact looks good. It looks like the pads did touch. I do have the imprints, right? Deep enough. This one even stayed on, so that's good. So I think contact is not going to be a problem, but the backplate definitely needs to flex. It's going to have to be resolved. So with that said, I'm going to put this back with the pads removed, and then we'll move on to the TUF. And the block is on. The cover, unfortunately, is not going to be able to go back on because this part is not cut out for the HDMI. This is something obviously addressed if you look at the TUF version of the block. It's addressed here. From my understanding, there's another version of this that's more final since this arrived to me. So that one probably have this addressed. So we'll try it. The cover not going to impact the performance, so we'll try it without the cover. But so far, contact looks good. Everything looks good. Size-wise, it's nice to see. And I think the covers are important because no one wants to see this big-ass, curve here. It's not attractive. But all right, so let's just start with the TUF. We'll move this to the side. Okay, so we're going to take this block apart. I'm going to pull the covers off because it just gets in the way. All right. Once again, guys, whatever covers you like to see, I've been told they may consider selling the covers separately so you can paint them, powder coat them, do whatever you want. But, it's all about customization, especially when you're spending this kind of money. So on the card and then the block. So anything you guys want to see, put it in the comments. This way I can relay that information forward, and that way everybody has some input and we're more likely to get something that we want to see, right? Not many manufacturers from this perspective take direct input, but the great thing about Bitspower that, for example, advantage that they have over something like EK or something like that is they produce everything on their own, essentially. So they can make the order. They don't have an MOQ when they make an order. So they can try one-offs. They can try separate things. They can just make one or two and we can see how it looks. And then, it's not like EK or somebody. For a lot of the things, they have to maybe get order 10,000 or 1,000. And if it don't work out, then you're just stuck with 999 of them. So it's very flexible. So anything you guys want to see, put in the comments, within reason, obviously. Don't go, hey, I want a 10-inch screen on my water block. Okay. But yeah. So I'm just going to remove these. And you'll see that it's the same kind of style as the other one. All right. So same type of deal here. You see, I don't see how this is not going to bulge like the other one. But I like how someone drew here. Memory goes here. But anyway, wow, this one's been mounted. I see some thermal paste. So I guess they've tested this one. Well, but I don't know the performance, and neither do you, so let's test it too. So I've installed the TUF block. On this backplate, you can see that they've actually pocketed out around the screw. So the screw can go in without bumping out. At this point, they might as well use a flathead screw, right? So that way it's more flush. But I think this backplate may actually be a little thicker too. If I look at this one, is it thicker? Yeah, it's the thicker backplate, you can tell. So because that pocketing operation on here would have made it extremely thin. But you can tell that this is probably more close to final, right? But yeah, so this one even has the RTX 59 TUF and the Nebula here. But yeah, so it's not going to have this on the final as well. But there's the bowing here. It's not as significant as on the Astral, but it definitely is present. I don't know. I mean, it's so minor. So this one you can barely tell. It's so minor that I don't know if there's a nut that's just slightly taller, or maybe just a washer, right? A washer would fix it. The screws are long enough. So I think, if you just had a washer, like a 1 millimeter washer, included or something like that, or like 0.75 millimeter washer, it would get rid of the bulge. That may be a solution, right? I'm just going to tighten these down some more. But yeah, so this definitely is a more flushed out block. I can tell that just by the assembly process. But yes, so now we will move on to the performance testing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to install these into a test system with the 7800X3D. I do have 9800X3D, but the FPS is not the main concern. The temperature is the main concern. So what we're going to do is we're going to hook this up to Aquabox from Singularity Computers. We will monitor the water temperature. We will check the delta of the block to the water temperature as it goes. So with that said, let's just get this in the system. We'll start with the Astral, and then we'll move on to the TUF.